Hey, it's that time. Hey folks, we are rapidly coming to the end of 2019 and I am going to do my pick for the 10 best, in my opinion, films of the year. Now, I debated possibly doing this a little bit later, but I want to drop it now, like trying to get back on top of my schedule. There are a few things that I wanted to see that I didn't get around to, but I don't have time to cram them in now. I'm not going to delay this list in order to do it. So, couple of things. Obviously, only going to talk about movies that I have actually seen. My having actually made a video reviewing these movies is not a requirement to be on this list, because some movies I didn't get to until significantly after they came out. But if I like them well enough, they're still going to be on this list. So some of these, this will be the first time you're hearing me actually talk about them on this channel. I think that's about it. Like I said, there are some movies that I didn't get around to. I wanted to see John Wick 3. I didn't get to it. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood I wanted to get to. The Irishman I wanted to get to. And I still plan to watch those, but like I said, I'm not going to cram them in before trying to get this video out. So, let us start. Well, actually, even before we do, can I just be honest? It wasn't a great year for movies. That's not to say there were no good movies, but there's multiple films, basically the bottom three of these in a better year would not have cracked the top 10. And coming out of all three of them, I didn't think, oh yeah, that'll be on my best of the end of the year list. So I don't want that to undercut the fact that these were good movies. There are good movies that didn't even make the list at all. But when I found myself compiling this list, top half, like, good stuff, middle, solid, and then what's down at the bottom is like, really? That's going to be in my top 10? And then I look at everything I saw this year, and I'm like, yeah, I guess so. Okay, so here we go. Number 10, Shazam. This is a recent watch because I missed it when it was in theaters, and it's very good. It's very good at what it is aiming to be, which is light and fun and enjoyable and funny and great family entertainment, which is just nice to see, because even Marvel at this point, as much as it is certainly has tended to be lighter in tone than a lot of the DC stuff, or at least the earlier parts of the DC things, that it's debatable whether or not the Marvel movies have really been truly family movies. They're movies that younger people can enjoy, but they haven't really been targeted at more that age range. Shazam is flat out, and I'm really glad it exists. It takes the bottom slot because some of the nature of some of the humor, because of the age range that and the family audience it's targeted at, leans a little bit into sort of the cringe area, which isn't my favorite thing, but it's very good at what it's trying to do, even if what it's trying to do is not my own personal preference. I'm super glad this movie exists. I'm really glad this movie was successful. And when it's good, it's great. The cast are clearly all having fun, and sort of what happens at the very end for the climax, that was stand up and cheer stuff. Good movie. Number 9 is a movie that I really wanted to put higher, but I kind of can't. I've got too many issues with it. But still good stuff. How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. This is the third one. I loved the original. The second one was amazing. This one is good, which does make it a step down relative to the other two. When it's good, it's great. That ending segment, especially, holy crap, right in the feels. During the middle part of it, like, the villain's not great, and some of it feels like some of the characters don't actually have a ton to do, but they're still there anyway, which is a fairly standard sequel problem. But when it is good, at its best, it reminds me why I love this franchise, and that is enough to land it on the list. Now, number 8, here's a big shock for me. I would not have called that this was going to be on my year-end list. And I'm not going to claim it's any great movie, but I had a lot of fun with it. And it's also one of those movies that kind of gets elevated because of how much my daughter enjoyed it, which has happened before a few times. And that is Detective Pikachu. Yeah. My kid is now very into Pokemon, and it is pretty much solely because of this film. She was aware of Pokemon before this, but it wasn't something she was super into. She's really into it now, and this got her there. Ryan Reynolds voicing Pikachu is so weird and bizarre, yet somehow perfect, basically doing PG Deadpool, and that shouldn't work, but it does. The way they're visualized is great because they're given sort of the texture of something more realistic, but the designs aren't drastically changed. The designs of the Pokemon are all true to what people love about this franchise and love about the designs of these characters and these creatures. So it retains the heart of that really well, and also just does a really great job of making the world feel fun. Like, you just want to spend more time there. I'm not sure that Detective Pikachu itself really needs or demands or could even necessarily justify a sequel, but I would be totally game to see other films set in this world. I want to spend more time here. And that was a fun thing to realize that, yeah, I'm totally game to come back for more of this. Moving up, number 7, Captain Marvel. This is one of those movies, a little bit like Shazam. I am super happy that it was successful. And I think it does what it sets out to do really, really well. It didn't always connect with me all the way through as much as I would have liked it to. But I can certainly see where, with some audiences, it connected hard and was exactly what they wanted. Part of the thing is, despite being a 90s kid, I'm not super nostalgic for the 90s, so 90s nostalgia is actually not an easy way to my heart. So maybe part of it is that for me, and then, you know, there's other little things about it, but I tell you what, Brie Larson, I think, does a great job. Samuel L. Jackson is clearly having a total blast, and that final confrontation, the way things go down between her and Jude Law is just gold. Love it. But I'm actually going to go up one spot above that for a female-led, arguably superhero-style film that is not as good a movie and is way messier, but I liked more. Number 6 goes to Aleta, Battle Angel. And this is on the strength of how Robert Rodriguez was able to visualize this world and the performance of Aleta herself. She is awesome. She is well realized visually, and the performance is stunning. It is a really hard needle to thread, giving us a character this powerful, yet this naive, and still make them relatable, and not have them just be just some weird, fetish object. That kind of character kind of comes up in manga and anime a bit, but it's just so perfectly nailed here. The way that she is able to capture the wonder that she feels, and the way she's able to project the emotions that she is feeling, and you buy that these feelings are as big for her as they are being portrayed. It is so good. The movie overall is decent. It's messy. It's sloppy, but it's got so much heart, and that heart is almost all in the character of Aleta herself, and that really does elevate the whole thing. If the rest had been more finely tuned, it could have been amazing, but as it stands, that central performance and her as a character is so good, it does still bring the rest of it up, and it gets at number 6. Moving along, number 5, you knew it had to be on here somewhere, Avengers Endgame. How do you pay off 10 years of buildup? How? How can you possibly deliver on 10 years of anticipation, and not just like we've been waiting for 10 years, but 10 years of continually building film over film over film, giving us Infinity War, and having to follow up on that? How? How can you possibly pay that off and not have it feel like an anticlimax? This is how. And if you are not all in on Marvel, it's long and bloated and indulgent. That is fair. But I'm all in. I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Not every movie is great. There are some that I don't even like that much, but I am so in. for this universe, these characters, this approach, and I think this is such an amazing closure for this phase of Marvel. And I know technically it's the end of phase 3, but like it is the closing of the book of what started it all. We're saying this is the end for Tony Stark, for Steve Rogers, and that a lot of stuff is coming to a close. And it feels earned. While at the same time closing it off, it's setting up who will still carry the torch. The thing is, and I actually do like this movie, but it is X-Men Days of Future Past. It is doing the same thing that movie did, but way better. And I even like Days of Future Past. But this is effectively doing the same thing, bringing an end to an era, while at the same time sort of setting up people to continue the legacy. They're both doing the same thing. This did it better. Man, it's good. Number 4, a movie that I really enjoyed. I don't think I've talked about really at all on here. And I also can't even show you an image of, because it was released by Paramount. And Paramount are the biggest friggin' jerks when it comes to copyright issues on YouTube. But I can still tell you what it is. Rocket Man. I thought this would just be fun. You know, I did know going in that it was actually a musical proper, not just a movie about Elton John, but a movie using Elton John's songs and having the characters actually burst into song in the telling of it. I thought that'll be a cute gimmick. And it is, and yet somehow it elevates what is not an altogether, drastically different or reinvention of the rock star rise to fame story. It fits the template, but having it be a musical and having it be a well-constructed one. The songs were really well chosen, really well performed. That makes all the difference, because the worst kind of jukebox musical, your Across the Universes, your Mamma Mias, while they can be fun, the problem with them is they generally have a very thin story that only exists to justify the use of whatever the next song is. It's an excuse to get us from song to song to song. Here, it really does feel like they sat down, worked out what parts of Elton John's life they were going to tell, and then went through his catalog going, what song would help tell this part of that story better? So it doesn't feel like the narrative is just connecting the musical numbers. The musical numbers feel like they're elevating the story, despite the fact that the songs pre-exist the movie. It's really well constructed, and Taron Egerton is great as Elton John. It's a really good movie. And we will continue up towards our top 3. But before we do, we're going to pause. I've got an honorable mention and a couple of dishonorables, because I don't see enough movies in a year to do a separate list of the 10 worst, because, this isn't my living. I don't see every movie that comes out. I don't try to see every movie that comes out. If I think I'm really not going to like something, I just flat out won't watch it. So most movies that I suspect I would really hate, I don't bother going to see. But I do have a couple of dishonorable mentions to get to. But before that, honorable mention goes to my daughter's favorite movie of the year, which I did ask her, and she is going with Frozen 2. Didn't make my list, but she really, really liked it. Dishonorables for me. Okay, so I've got 2. I need to cover what I feel was the worst movie I saw this year and my biggest disappointment. Now, biggest disappointment, this one hurt. And it's not even that it's a bad movie, but for how much I liked the one before and how much I was anticipating this, it was a disappointment. It was a step down. And that is Spider-Man Far From Home. And it's not a bad movie. But Spider-Man Homecoming is consistently in my top 3 MCU films, personal favorites. And its sequel, probably right in the middle overall of 20 some odd movies. Yeah, that's a step down. That was a disappointment. I suspect people who have been watching my reviews lately might think that worst movie I saw would go to Last Christmas. Didn't because like I did actually get entertainment out of that, and the way that it was bad was just so whoever thought this was a good idea. No, the one that really ticked me off, and I knew I was going to hate it, and under normal circumstances I wouldn't have watched it, but my kid really wanted to see it. The Lion King. Oh, Lord. I can't reiterate this stuff. See my earlier review if you need to know. But let's get to top 3. Number 3. A movie that I did not think was going to be good. And I get to now hold up as an illustration of I'm serious when I say I love to be proven wrong. Early trailers for this, I turned my nose up at. I said, this looks terrible. I heard the very idea of this movie. I'm like, this will be bad. Toy Story 4. I liked it when I saw it. I was surprised how much I liked it when I saw it. And the more I thought about it, the more I liked it. I like it because what I assumed Toy Story 4 would be a painful continuation, very ham-fisted, forcing one more story out of something that was very clearly closed off in the third one. But that's not what Toy Story 4 is. Toy Story 4 is a coda. The trilogy proper is still Toy Story 1, 2, 3. That is Andy's Toys. And what Toy Story 4 is that it's an indication of what life can be after the life they knew. And you can argue that that was set up with them, becoming Bonnie's toys at the end of Toy Story 3, but that really only set them up for the same cycle we saw with Andy. Toy Story 4, through Bo and eventually Woody, shows us what can happen when you break that cycle. And that these characters have the power to choose to exit that cycle. And for some of them, that's the right choice. And it's just nice. It is nice to see a film aimed at a younger audience about moving on to a new phase in your life. Even if that means leaving behind everything that you thought your life was always going to be. That ending is not the end of your world. There are new things for you to find. And in the scope of this franchise overall, I think this is a fantastic final note. I do hope final. I'm not sure they could keep going on this. And it does end in a way that I think definitively they are now done. But it was really good. Number 2. Here's another one I have not talked about before because I only watched it recently. Us. Wow, man. I had high hopes for this one because Get Out, Jordan Peele's previous film, was, I said, the best film of that year when it came out. And this had high expectations on it. It did not let me down. And the thing is, it rides such a fine line because it comes dangerously close to breaking what is, for me, a rule of allegorical, metaphorical, and message filmmaking. Which is that if it only works if you have been told what the allegory is, what the metaphor means, and it doesn't work as a story in and of itself, then it doesn't work properly. At least I feel that. And this comes really close because seeing the film in and of itself the first time, I got to the end and I wasn't totally sure I understood what I had just watched. And it took some looking into some of the writings about it, some of the things that Jordan Peele himself said about it, to make me understand what the film was actually doing. And once I did, I was like, oh. But see, that's the thing. First of all, even before that, even when I wasn't sure I knew what it was about, it was still an amazing, visceral experience to watch. While I could not necessarily say what it was, it left me with a satisfied experience, even if a slightly befuddled one, even before I knew what all the things going on with it were. And once I knew, it was the best kind of learning about the intentions of a film, because it made you go, oh, well, that means this connects to this and all this stuff fits together. Oh, yeah! Because the worst kind of allegorical filmmaking is when you find out what the allegory is and you go, okay, wait, but if that's that, then why is this this? And that doesn't fit together. That doesn't make any sense. Us, first of all, I actually recommend you, if you haven't seen it yet, watch it without reading anything about it. Experience it viscerally. Then start digging into the thoughts and the dissections and the analyses of it. Oh, man. This thing is so densely layered with thematic meaning. It's amazing. Which is actually a feature it shares with my number one pick. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time dwelling on what the number one pick is, because I think it's going to confuse enough people that I need to devote an entire video to explaining why it's in the number one spot. And that video is actually going to happen in a week. But for right now, my number one film of 2019 is the Lego Movie 2, the second part. I'm not kidding. I think this film has been unfairly forgotten. I think it has been unfairly marked as a lesser sequel to the earlier films. I think that's wrong. I think this film is amazing and touching and thematically dense and very carefully woven the theming into the way everything is presented, and it all links up and it is terrifically constructed. And like I said, I feel like enough people are going to go, what? That, yeah, I'm devoting a full video to explaining that. Tune back in a week to find out the details on that. But for right now, just know it is my pick for the best movie of 2019. What are your thoughts on this list? What are your top picks? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Stuff to do as well. Like, subscribe, support me on Patreon. That is super appreciated. Share this video around. Any and all those things. Awesome stuff. I've got links for other things down there besides social media. I wrote a book. I've got a P.O. box. Whatever you want to do. But you also don't have to do any of it, because at the end of the day, you're the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.